Good morning, everyone. My name is Everlyne Otieno. I'm an urban development planner and a land technical specialist with the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Previously, I was the city planner for Kisumu. I'll be taking you through equitable transport and local government, and basically just talk about what equitable transport is all about and what local authorities can do to actually improve or ensure that there's equitable transportation. First and foremost, just to bring us to context, equitable transportation are those mobility solutions that are inclusive and consider all peoples as owners, planners, and decision makers, so to speak. In most cases in Kenya, transportation systems favor vehicular traffic to suburbans and upwardly mobile users like car owners. The local governments have been struggling to ensure safe and equitable transportation is within reach for most urban dwellers. But the focus has always been vehicles, building and opening and expansion of roads to manage congestion. But this has never worked. However, equitable transportation is still far within reach of the majority of the population, since transportation is unaffordable to many. I want to give you an example of Kisumu, where I worked for over 10 years. Kisumu, for example, has a population of 567,983, according to the 2019 census, with a growth rate of approximately 2.8% per annum. 60% of these urban dwellers reside in informal settlements, what we normally refer to as slums. And in Kisumu, we have Nyalenda A, B, Manyata A and B, Obunga, among others. It has 63.3% employment rate, and over 60% are engaged in informal businesses that mainly trade along the road reserves. The city has a poverty index of 32.5%, compared with the national index of 16%. In 2018-2019, a household mobility survey done in Kisumu by ITDP showed that approximately 53% of the daily trips are by foot. That means a lot of people are trekking to work or are walking to work. Contrary to the study that was done with the Sustainable Urban Mobility in 2005, that showed that only 46% are walking at that time. So we've had a slight increase in terms of numbers of those who are walking. 13% in 2018-2019 were using matatus and tuk-tuks, as opposed to 2005, where we had about 34.8% who are using this kind of transportation. But you find that the city government would always provide for roads that do not have pedestrian walks, that do not have cyclists or bicycle lanes. So this made it very difficult or quite unfriendly for people to walk on these spaces. You find that when people were asked the reason why they used those kind of transport like boda boda, they said it was quick, easily available, and it was quite cheap, as opposed to other modes of transport. And why were they not walking as often is that these streets were unsafe. They were scrambling for the same road space with tuk-tuks, bodas, and vehicles. So this created a lot of accidents. The city of Kisumu has tried to advance safe and equitable transportation through Kisumu Sustainable Mobility Plan, a 10-year plan which aims to foster and increase accessibility by prioritizing walking, cycling, and public transport. What I would say is that transportation equity should translate into transportation networks and land use structures that support health and well-being, environmentally sustainable and equitable access to resources and opportunities. Funding for inclusive transportation should be a priority for local governments as a way of improving service delivery and contributing to global net zero of emissions. The other thing that the local governments can do is to improve spatial or land use planning to ensure that there are more densities along transport corridors that will make public transportation more efficient. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and good morning. My name is Kevin Ajul. I'm uh, working with the county government of Kisumu, and I'm the former city engineer of the city of Kisumu. Currently, I'm working for Department of Physical Planning, Lands and Urban Development as a structural engineer, and I am attached to a program called Kenya Informal Settlement Improvement Program, which is a World Bank funded program dealing with land tenure regularization and improvement of infrastructure in informal settlement. So I was invited for the Women in Transportation in Africa conference, and tasked to do a talk on equitable transport and local government where I work. So I prepared a small presentation. In fact, my presentation was limited to less than 10 pages. So that's exactly what I did. And I'll start the screen sharing and share with you what Kisumu local government have done as far as equitable transport is concerned. So I can state that when I was the city engineer, I was the task team leader for a program called Kenya Urban Support Program, which was also World Bank funded, running for 6 years in 45 counties in Kenya, except Mombasa and Nairobi. So under this program, we wanted to improve on our public transport, and we wanted to encourage walking and cycling in town, in Kisumu city. So these got to, and we had worked on a program called Kisumu Sustainable Mobility Plan, which is a 10-year plan with aim of increasing accessibility by prioritizing walking, cycling, and public transport. So under that program, I'm the coordinator at county level, and we were working with Ford Foundation, UN Habitat, and ITDP. So what made us focus on public transportation? We'll realize that as a city grows, connectivity to um, various places like places of education, employment, and other social areas become fundamental, and they are key to growth of a city. So in Kisumu, we realized that despite all this, despite the growth that we have been realizing, we are developing a lot of infrastructure. We have a lot of people walking and cycling in town, yet our streets were not designed, or are not designed to accommodate those who are walking and those who are cycling. So we find that the public transport became overwhelmed, and this one follows the population increase, economic growth. Yet we didn't have facilities which can make public transport comfortable. So people resorted into buying personal cars. Personal cars is not bad, but you find that now the issue of congestion comes, We have the issue of green gas emissions. We have these are the challenges. If the public transport is not organized, then we can see environmentally, we have the greenhouse gases emissions, the high carbon mobility. We have air and water pollution because these grease and whatever, when the vehicles are serviced, all these are washed to the river. Then we like socially, we have the road traumas, we have accidents. I think we are all aware how the motorbikes and pedestrians are prone to road accidents and all that. We have obesity. People are not healthy because we are not exercising, we are not walking. People are comfortable in vehicles. We have also had um, economic challenges like we are so much depending on fuel like oil, and ask yourself, what if the sources of fuel gets depleted? We ask ourselves, do we have any other sources that we can efficient energy that we can explore? So those are some of the challenges that comes with unsustainable public transport. So when talking about our transport system, then you ask ourselves, what is the current situation? We have challenges in unsustainable public transport, and these challenges are categorized into three. We have the environmental, where with the greenhouse gases emissions, we are affecting the environment. There are a lot of air and water pollution. Socially, we are losing lives on our roads. The motorists, the pedestrians, who are very economical, are key pillars of economic growth of our country. We have obesity. People are not walking, but we want to encourage walking and cycling. Is not only helping in improving the environment, but is also healthy for us to walk and cycle. With the emissions of the vehicles, the study shows that we have reduced children's independent mobility. Children are really affected, the children that are being born today. We also have the economic aspect of it, the cost of mobility, the car dependency, all these affects our economy. So those are some of the challenges that we face when we have unsustainable public transport. So in my next slide, I wanted us to talk about what is happening in our transport system today. What are the characteristics? Are there some recommendations that we have in place? Then the first one was the careless driving by motorists and even careless pedestrian crossing. So that's something we see on a day-to-day basis, and we need road safety education. We need road safety campaigns and regulations which should be enforced. The police, the NTSA, and even the local government should take this one as a priority and start educating people on road usage. Then we have the speeding, motorists, cars, and all that is very common and is a source of road trauma. So enforcement of speed limits. Currently, I think in social places, like the markets, near schools and all that, the speed limits is capped at 50, but there is a debate on reducing it to 30. So, and that 30 should be enforced so that we ensure the motorists and the cyclists and the motorists, they adhere to these speed limits. We put what is called the speed governors. This was introduced by Michuki some time back, but enforcement of it is wanting. We have the third one, as noted in our slide, is lack of adequate pedestrian infrastructure. A lot of people are walking to work, from work to home, to schools, to social places, to educational places, but there are no developed NMT infrastructure. NMT means the non-motorized transport infrastructure. Non-motorized, you know, they are the people walking, the cyclists. We have even kids nowadays, our kids in school skating, but we have not developed this infrastructure. There is the perception that it is the development is only associated with big projects like roads. We fail to recognize that we need NMT infrastructure. So emphasis should also be put in NMT infrastructure as part of developing public transport. Lack of pedestrian crossings. That's why we are losing a lot of lives in the road. We need to construct what we call the tabletop crossing. This is a universal crossing area. We have poor lighting in our roads. So as we construct NMT, we must consider the safety of the people who are walking. We need to provide lights. In our roads, we see vehicles picking up and dropping off passengers at non-designated zones in Kisumu. That's something that I even captured and talked about. In our training in Sweden to just show the traffic, the traffic unorganized, how the traffic is unorganized. So we need to enforce these rules. The pick up and drop off points should be well designated and drivers should adhere to them. Footbridges, this is common in our highways, but they are underutilized. They don't even provide the equity that is needed, because persons living with disability cannot access if there are stairs. Most of them occupies a large space. If you are now to construct a ramp, you find poor lighting there, and the distance it covers, people shy away from using them. Road signs, open ditches and drainages, lack of public toilets. And I wanted to talk about public toilets. We don't just need a toilet, we need clean, we need modern toilets that caters for all the gender and also the children.
I was thinking so.
In my next slide, I just wanted to maybe define sustainable transport and strategies and innovation to ensure that the sustainable transport is accepted. Sustainable transport is a transport system that satisfies the current transport and mobility needs, but it does not compromise the ability for the future generation. It should provide the environmental and economic safeguards, but also not forgetting the dimension of accessibility, equity, choice, and affordability. Should be affordable to all, different people of social classes and gender should have a choice. It should be equitable to all and accessible to all. So how do we make this one happen? The public transport should be affordable to the user. It should be acceptable. And how do we make it acceptable? We should make it in such a way that the user support the willingness of the use. It should address local issues of cultural, institutional, of different classes of people, different religions. It should be available all the time. And we should create public awareness of the various transport models that we want to use. Now, what did we do in Kisumu at local government level to ensure equity of our NMT infrastructure? We constructed public toilets along our NMT infrastructure.
The transformation.
And the public toilets we constructed are modern, considering a lot of things.
Forces.
Persons living with a disability cubicle must be there, diaper changing areas, breastfeeding rooms, and now the normal gender separation is there. I talked of the tabletop crossing, which provides universal access, and everyone, including the PLWD, does not need any guidance from anyone to be able to access from one end of the road to the other. This one was not done in Kisumu, but we saw the need, in fact, when we were in Mombasa, to still put traffic marshals in various crossing areas to guide people, to guide both genders in crossing the road, to guide both age group, the wazers, the elderly, the children, and those who may need assistance in crossing the road. So traffic marshals at local government should be considered. Universal access to property entrances. We are used to steps, but steps does not produce universal access. Ramps should be adopted. Then we should also consider integrated public transport models. We see now the railways is coming to Kisumu and is ready, will take effect sometime in the future. If we integrate it with our NMT and we integrate it with our road transport and even the lake, that provides different modes of transport, and it gives people options. And if you have options, we can go where we feel comfortable. We don't need rogue touts harassing the female gender. We need a decent way of transport where the female gender can work comfortably. So that one needs the integrated public transport. We provide the street lighting for public transport to reduce the cases of mugging, rape, and even murder. We witness that, you know, the NMT also attracts a lot of street kids. And these are danger to mostly the female and school-going children. So ensuring street light is very important. And then the last one is we are encouraged to design streets which accommodate vending activities, because we cannot run away from vendors, from vending activities. People get livelihood there. Public transport needs traffic. What are these traffic generators? It is even the vending places are one of them. So we should, as we encourage walking, we should also encourage activities along our infrastructure, which attracts the pedestrian. So those are some of the interventions that at local government can be done to ensure a sustainable public transport and also equity in usage of the public transport, different public transport modes that we put in place. So I told you I had a very short slide. I didn't want to get to 10. So just by finishing, this is one of our ablution blocks that we have adopted in our streets. And they are modern and accommodates all the gender, persons living with disability, and also a lot of things to do with the children, the young children, the toddlers. So thank you.